They believe that a cult is not happening to them, but it's happening to you. Once you stop doing 1 John 4:1, you're in a cult. You should always be doing that. And as it says, test all inspired expressions. Well, how can something be a test if I don't think that what's being tested could be wrong, could be a lie? See, that's not a true test. So when you're looking at these teachings, even of your church and whatever they're saying, but look at Paul, even what he said, they were testing it, the Bereans. So it doesn't matter where you're at. Once you stop testing, that usually means you're in a cult. So when you're testing and you find out something is wrong, and as you bring it to the leaders or to the members, and they're upset because you dare challenge what their leader said, I mean, it becomes obvious that's what you're in. You're in a cult. They can't prove what they're saying, but because you challenge their leader, they're offended by it. If you look at what happens, I think I've been watching on TV some of the cabinet meetings of President Trump. And if you listen to the people and how they talk to him, they say it's almost like they say his full name like a robot. And they're just praising him all the time, just praising him. You see, it's like he can do no wrong. Now, he's an imperfect human. He doesn't admit to doing anything wrong, yet he claims to be a Christian. And when you do that, that's like calling God a liar, as the book of John says. And they're praising him in this way as though he doesn't do any wrong. They've given him unquestioned authority. That is a cult. And you can listen in real time the expressions of people of a cult. You hear those expressions. It's whatever that imperfect human says, that's what's true. They're always praising them. The offense is that you would dare challenge their leader, their imperfect leader. That's what a cult is. And so when you listen to those conversations, you're listening to a cult situation in real time. I was just talking to one of the Watchtower witnesses recently. We was talking about 1914. We was going over all the particulars, the 4 questions that they need to answer. Well, in his mind, it doesn't matter. As long as those men up in New York tell him something, that's all that matters. Truth doesn't matter. It's an offense if you challenge their leader. That's a cult. Catholic Church, that's a cult. Whatever the Pope said, doesn't matter. Whatever the Pope says, that's it. No matter what the Bible said, that's a cult. 1.4 billion people in a cult. Islam, same thing. Their leader, Muhammad, imperfect, whatever he says, all honor, everything like that, cult. Nation of Islam, one that Malcolm X was in. He was in a cult. Everything about what Elijah Muhammad said, no matter what. That imperfect man, follow him no matter what. A cult. He woke up from that cult. And that's when they killed him. It's hard to wake up from a cult because you've attached your whole life to it, your eternal welfare, your whole being. You believe that everything you have, your whole life outcome rests on that particular person and what they're saying. And it's very tough to wake people up from a cult. Usually what's happening, that cult leader is giving them what they want to hear. He's making them feel special. As long as you stick with me, you're so special and privileged by God. And they don't want to lose that feeling. And they feel like if they do anything disloyal to this leader, it is something sinful that they're doing. And so it's very hard to wake them up to start calling things as they are. You know, to see truth for what it is, to get their eye uncluttered from that darkness, to be looking at things simply and objectively as they are. But once you get a person to wake up, and they start using their whole mind, as God says, and they start doing the check-in, and start going through the processes that the Bible says to do, then the whole game changes then. The whole ball game changes. They wake up from that unreality of following an imperfect human in an unquestioned way. That's the main detachment that has to be made. They must stop giving humans this kind of power in their lives. You simply have to be focused on the truth. You have to simply be focused on finding the various treasures of truth, gathering those treasures and collecting them. That's what you have to do. And that means you have to do the work. You have to do the testing, and you have to make sure of all things. Now the thing is, once you make sure, then you've gathered in all these truths. That's power. Because there's nothing that can be done against the truth. So now, this is issuing now from you now. Now you're able to prove everything you're speaking about. Nothing's going to be able to be done against that. You're going to be powerful in the spiritual warfare. You only get the power through Jesus, because Jesus said the truth will set you free. And that's what you got to have to unlock yourself, unchain yourself from doing whatever these imperfect humans tell you to do. No, we obey God as ruler rather than man, don't we? We never put human words on the same level as God's, because God's thoughts are higher than man's. So we got to make sure of all things and not go beyond what's written, which means we have to have something written. And something coming out of an imperfect human's mouth is not something written. It's got to be in the scriptures. So people have to make their decision what they want, but it requires love. Love rejoices with the truth. If you have love and loyalty, then you're going to gravitate to the truth. You're not going to go on by the propaganda. You're going to go by thoroughly investigating and finding out what it is, and then proving it. And once you do that, it's over. The tables are turned. You can't be captured like that anymore.